country.
Well, I've seen the photos. I mean, after Ronnie and Ukraine's NATO facility.
And we are live. Another week. LarryCJohnson, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I am well. I'm doing better than South Korea, Syria, Ukraine. So
Georgia.
Good. Yeah, it's all crazy.
Yeah. So some weeks ago, we had that speech from Biden, and he was all smiley, and he just looked like he had finally got rid of that old Ford Pintos. But well, for Brazilians to understand the joke for that Maré Turbo, Fiat Maré Turbo, then it doesn't look like that's enough. It looks like he has to get rid of the Ford Pinto and then cut the brakes hose and break the windows and flatten the tires. What the hell's going on in the United States, man?
I think Biden, there had been reports that there was a deal cut between Biden and Trump, but I'm beginning to think that's not the case. And that may have been just some wishful thinking, because it appears that Biden is intent on creating as much chaos as possible for Donald Trump coming into office. And Trump, regrettably, but I'm not necessarily surprised, is taking the bait. Yesterday he put out that, Hamas better release those hostages or there'll be hell to pay. I realize he's been on the campaign trail, but that's an absolutely stupid thing to say, because Hamas has been catching hell for the last 14 months. There's, I'm not sure there's a standing building left in Gaza to bomb. And so inflicting violence and he's going to send U.S. Special Operations Forces to get the hostages. Look, I've worked with those guys for 23 years, and they don't have magical superhuman abilities. They're highly skilled. They can be very brave, but throwing them into that kind of situation, where they won't be able to really be easily sustained in the field, it's just it's insanity. So, Trump thinks by talking tough, he's going to cow Russia, Iran, and Hamas. He's made the threats to Mexico and Canada, and yeah, they apparently have caved. Apparently said, "See, the threats work." They're not going to work overseas. They're not going to work with Iran. They're not going to work with Russia. They're not going to work with China. So we'll just have to, Trump's going to have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, there's this profile on Twitter called Napolitano ergo, no, Siciliano ergo sum, that he posted yesterday. So Trump is menacing to transform Gaza into Gaza, basically.
Yeah. They make Gaza. Yeah, actually, they'd like to make Gaza what Gaza was before, but turning Gaza into a hellscape, it already is a hellscape.
Mm-hmm.
And, thinking that you can deploy U.S. Marines, they'll wind up getting killed. And again, Trump ran on keeping us out of needless wars. Well, this is the most needless war possible. But, if he does it, shame on him. He'll deserve every piece of grief and suffering that comes from that.
Yeah. So talking about the big talking point of tonight, democracy. So is democracy on the bailout? after all, because, I'm just looking around at things, and in less than a week, we have the, terrorist gangs from Turkey attacking Syria, which makes me think if they are trying to, is there an outcome of that? Like, are they going to make an asado out of Assad, or is Assad going to have turkey for Thanksgiving?
Well, who's they? I'm not following you on the they. Who's the they?
Well, the terrorist group that just invaded Syria.
Okay, you mean the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, right? HTS.
Yeah.
So HTS is a proxy for the government of Turkey, as well as for the United States and the United Kingdom, which is really bizarre. People think, how can this be? How can the United States be supporting anyone like HTS? And HTS sort of, if you're going to do a family tree, who are its ancestors? It's a descendant. It's a branch of what we used to be known as ISIS. And what makes ISIS distinct from groups like Hamas and Hezbollah is ISIS is a Salafist, Takfiri, jihadist group. That means they are a group that believe that they have the full revelation and authority of Islam in their hands, that they are the ultimate judges and arbiters of who is Muslim and who isn't, and that you either convert to Islam or you die, which is why, they made, going back to the early days of ISIS, when they were, making quite a show of beheading people on camera. And these guys still are beheading folks.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the West, particularly the United States CIA, they've been providing intelligence support, training, weapons, money to the government of Turkey, knowing that that money is going to be used for the training of these radical Islamists. Now, all along, I thought that the entire global war on terror in the aftermath of 9/11 was supposed to defeat this brand of Islam. But now here we are, 23, 24 years later, and the United States is actually funding one of those groups. Why? Well, because we view Iran as the real threat. Even though Iran has not carried out a single terrorist attack against the West in the last 25 years, since the start of this global war on terror. In fact, Iran with Hezbollah have been fighting the same radical Sunni extremists that attacked the United States on 9/11. And I had these people out there, oh, you're not accepting the fact that the Jews did 9/11. That's a bunch of crap. All of this conspiracy theory, I'm frankly fed up with it. They can't accept the fact that the United States is just incompetent, and then, in addition to being incompetent, took advantage of that situation to justify a global war on terror.
Mm-hmm.
And this gets us a little off track, but everybody talks about the dancing Israelis. Yeah, why was Israel dancing? Because actually, I believe Israel had absolute knowledge that this was, their intelligence had determined that this was going to take place. They may have not known precisely when or where, but they knew it was going to take place. And they didn't warn the United States because why? They wanted it to happen because they calculated that they could use this as a tool to get the United States embroiled in a war in the Middle East to take out Iran. Because the thing Israel wanted at that time more than anything is to get rid of Iran. That's why all of this looks like conspiracy.
At that time?
Yeah.
Okay. And now it's just, they just kept wanting that.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, it fits perfectly. That's, I'm not surprised, for example, that hearing Netanyahu speaking, about 9/11 over and over and over and over again, it feels to me out of nowhere some new footage of 9/11 after I don't know how many years, 13 years, a new footage of 9/11
After
surge.
23 years.
23 years, 23. You know,
Yeah.
I sometimes I forgot that it's 24 already.
It'll be 24 next year.
Yeah, exactly. And some months ago that happened, and I was like, yeah, they are preparing the mind of people, you know, for getting used to the 9/11 thing all over again and again and again. And well, that's a perception that they had nothing to do with that, and at the same time, yeah, they had to do with not alerting the United States because it fits their wishes, the regional power wishes, or what can be called. So now we have the HTS. Am I saying at least the
initials.
3 letters right? The initials right. HTS.
Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Again, attacking Syria. So not on this vignette, but in my channel's vignette, I have the famous sentence, Assad must go. Assad must go, Assad must go, Assad must go. And then again, we have Assad must go. Why now, Larry?
Well, again, this is a, you know, have you been following this for a while? This isn't the first time. They tried it in 2011, 2012, 2013. So again, the goal remains the same. Syria's relationship, partnership, if you want to call it that, with Iran is seen by the West as something that cannot be allowed to exist. Even though in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, Syria offered its full help, support, cooperation with the United States to go after those Sunni jihadists, because Syria has a same interest in getting rid of the Sunni jihadists. And so what's happening right now is the West is in desperation mode. It's losing in Ukraine. It's really losing with respect to Hezbollah and the situation in Israel. They know that, but not admitting it in public, but they know that they failed to seriously hurt or harm Iran with this last October 1st Israeli bombing attempt in Iran. And Iran keeps vowing it's going to retaliate. When, we'll see if Iran is just, talking through its hat, or if it's actually got the wherewithal to damage Israel and damage it significantly. Israel militarily is exhausted right now, despite all of its bravado. It still has the ability to fly planes and drop bombs on innocent, men, women, and children, where there's no air defense. So this current effort was seen as a way to try to destroy Syria, disrupt Hezbollah's line of supplies from Iran that would transit Syria and then go into Lebanon. That's what this is all about. It's there's not just one motive. There are things that serve the interests of Israel. That's why Israel reportedly was coordinating with Turkish intelligence. There are things that serve Turkey's interests, both wanting to open up and establish control over territory in Syria that could be used to build a pipeline that would transit Syria and go into Turkey and be used to allow oil from the Middle East, from Qatar, to be transferred up through Turkey. That way you avoid having to load it on tankers. It'd be much easier to deliver it, distribute it. The United States, UK, they're working with Ukrainian intelligence, who's down fighting in Syria with HTS, with these Islamic extremists, with these terrorists, for no better word. So I said, you've got a variety of parties sitting at the table. They all have different motives, but the one thing they agree on is they need to try to see if they can destroy Bashar al-Assad, and they're failing. And the reason they're failing now is, unlike their attempts in 2011, 2012, when the Arab League stood with the West against Bashar al-Assad,
Mhm.
when Russia stood aside and wasn't doing anything, Bashar al-Assad was essentially on his own for about 3 years, fighting it off, and then Russia joined the fray. But today, you have the Arab League firmly on the side of Bashar al-Assad, and you now have Erdogan publicly denying, "Oh, we didn't have anything to do with this." No. That they're trying to negotiate a settlement. So, like I said, I think Erdogan's the most disgusting, despicable leader in the world. If you had to pick worst leader of the world today, yeah, he'd be my number one choice.
We came to 2 points converging in this. That is, Trump talking smack and this situation in Syria. I was watching the Duran these days, and more precisely Alexander Mercury's analysis about Syria. And one thing that came to his mind was the fact that perhaps they are seeing that Syria, the whole Syrian situation is coming to an end, like the war and all that, and Syria is slowly coming back to the Arab League, doing business with Russia, with Iran, and everything that. And Erdogan perhaps wants to have a strong hand, and the same thing as Trump having a strong hand on Gaza. It sounds to me that is a very, very high bet from both of them, as you said.
I mean, look, Marcelo, there's a big difference. The big difference is, Turkey and Syria have a history.
Yeah.
And we're not talking the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, the year goes back years. There was a time where Syria was providing active support to the PKK, which was a Kurdish group that engaged with terrorist attacks, understanding that terrorism are acts of violence against civilians for political purposes. So the PKK wasn't fighting Turkish security forces. They were killing Turkish civilians. And Turkey had ample reason to be angry at Syria over that. But not only Syria, Greece was actively involved. And full disclosure, I did work for the government of Turkey back in 1996 on this very question, looking at foreign support for PKK. Turkey understandably wants to eliminate that, and so you've got what's driving all of this conflict in the West Asia, as many are starting to call it, or the Middle East, whatever, that landmass from Turkey down to Saudi Arabia, are that there are indigenous ethnic groups of people that want to rule over their land, and they're constantly being harassed or ruled over by others, by outsiders, at least as they view them. That's the major source of this conflict. Now, the United States has the only reason the United States is heavily involved in Israel is because of all the Jewish money that flows into political coffers here in the United States. That's it. And we think we're fools if we think we can go over there and fix the situation, bring calm to it, or stop, solve the hostage crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it firsthand when George H.W. Bush was president. We had what was known as the hostage crisis in Lebanon, where a variety of Americans had been taken hostage, some I believe by Hezbollah, others by Amal. And the search, the hunt for them was on, the threats to do violence were there. And, ultimately it was a negotiated release, and all of the hostages were released. But, that took diplomacy, not military force.
Something that it looks like the United States has forgotten how to do.
Forgotten diplomacy? They can't even spell it.
I cannot spell it, but I'm not responsible for doing it.
I'll do it in Spanish. Diplomacy.
See, I cannot do it in English, nor perhaps not even in Portuguese. No, I can do it in Portuguese. If I write it on the screen, I can spell it.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, with all that, we again coming to democracy on the belt. Let's go to Georgia, because all the things, there's a lot of fog of war, but what comes to me very interesting is that, well, there was elections in Georgia, someone won, and now the president say, I didn't lose, I'm going to remain, I'm going to, well, basically Juan Guaido 3.0, after, Corina Machado and all the people from Venezuela. Now we have that in Georgia. That's funny to me.
Well, this is just a continuation of, this is part of the broader policy of the United States and NATO to try to defeat Russia. So they want to bring Georgia under their control, so Georgia can be used as a platform for launching covert actions, intelligence operations against Russia. The goal in this, it's really, I wrote about this last night.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm a child of the Cold War, so I was born in 1955, and grew up being taught that the communists are bad. The Soviet Union is intent on conquering the world and imposing global communism on everybody. Never heard or understood at the time that, in fact, that's one of the reasons that Stalin killed Trotsky, or had Trotsky murdered, was because Trotsky was pushing that kind of global revolution, and Stalin was saying that was nonsense. Soviet Union needed to get its own house in order first before trying to remake the world. But we justified one war after another in order to stop the communists, whether it was Vietnam, supporting the Mujahideen, the Islamists in Afghanistan, the wars in Central America, the war in Angola. So we justified it all in fighting communism. And our entire defense industry was organized. Its raison d'etre was entirely fixated on combating international communism. Well, then the Soviet Union implodes. Communism, are there still some ardent communists in Russia? Sure. But they're not the majority.
In Italy.
Yeah, but they're not the majority. They're a minority political party. And apart from being a minority political party, they're out of step with most of Russia's society, because Russian society now are devout Christians, as has been the case with Russia for 1,000 years. But also, there's a sizable Muslim population from the Chechen region and Kazakhstan and other adjacent states and countries to Russia on the southern border. And Russia gets along with them fine. And yet the United States still felt compelled to find a reason that we had to treat Russia as an enemy. And so they began pushing this crap, this lie, that Russia's trying to rebuild and reestablish the Soviet Union. Russia doesn't have 750 plus military bases around the world. That's the United States. Russia has not spent the last 30 years carrying out military operations in other states illegally, in violation of international law, whether we're doing it in Afghanistan, whether we're doing it in Iraq, whether what we're doing right now in Syria, whether we're doing it in Africa. The United States is out of control. And yet we've got to insist on the Russia's the problem. And that's what the West wants to destroy Russia, because the West wants Russia's resources. Russia cannot be allowed to have control of those resources, because the rest of the world sees if Russia has that, Russia's going to be able to call the shots. Now, fortunately, Russia has not been behaving like a dictator, just the opposite. Russia treats other countries with respect, not disdain, not as a field servant, a field slave like the United States does. So that goes back to what's going on in Georgia. Take control of Georgia, weaken Russia, force Russia to divert resources, try to destroy Russia at any cost. That's the U.S. policy. And the Russians damn well better understand that. Do not believe that the West is a benign threat.
Yeah, you just mentioned, I've seen the recent images from Georgia, the protests in Georgia with the fireworks. Have you seen those fireworks machine guns?
Yeah. I don't, the police need to go in and arrest these demonstrators. They're being funded by outside sources. This isn't organic, indigenous to Georgia. This is being completely manipulated by intelligence organizations outside. Same playbook they did in Ukraine back in 2014.
And I was about to mention the images from the protests in Brazil in 2014 and then 2017. And well, we know what happened after that, using fireworks, machine gun. Well, they were not that sophisticated at the time, but they were some type of machine gun fireworks prototypes.
Notice the hypocrisy of the West. They celebrate these protesters as they're peaceful protesters. And any effort by the government of Georgia to crack down on them is decried as unjust interference, as illegal. Yet the United States locked up hundreds of people who walked into the U.S. Capitol. They weren't shooting off fireworks. They weren't carrying guns. They weren't carrying clubs. They simply walked into the Capitol and were treated as insurrectionists. So, all I can say to the United States is spare me your bullshit.
And someone got killed on that day, right? A lady got shot.
Five people were killed.
5 people were killed.
And they were all killed at the hands of the police. So the narrative that immediately came out was that the protesters had killed 5 police. No. The one Capitol Hill policeman who died the next day died from a stroke. He didn't die from anything that was done to him in the crowd. But the police actually were involved. The Capitol Hill police involved with the deaths of at least 3 other people, including the one woman who was shot in the Capitol by an incompetent Capitol Hill policeman. Absolutely incompetent.
Of course, yes. Yeah, I when I saw these images, I immediately remember Brazil. And well, but it seems that also watching Alex Cristoforo today, actually, he mentioned that this time they are not playing Maidan. We're going to be the nice guys. They're just arresting, and now they have a foreign agent law, so they can just track these people's money and find and just lock them down forever. Yeah. Well,
it's ironic that the West wants to prevent implementation of a Foreign Agents Registration Act, whereas the United States has such a law and upholds it. Because we recognize there can be pernicious influences from overseas. But hell, we got Israel is consistently in violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. They don't have to register. And it's worth noting that the last president who tried to force the Zionist Organization of America, that was the predecessor to AIPAC, to force them to register as a foreign agent was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. His brother Robert F. Kennedy sent a letter to the Zionist Organization of America 1 month before Kennedy was killed, demanding that they register as a foreign agent. Let's just call that a coincidence.
By chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, too many coincidences happening. And about another coincidence, Larry, is, well, let's talk about more democracy, even more democracy. And now we have South Korea. That during this day, I was noticed by someone that there was a martial law decree by the president. And 1 hour or two later, there was a vote from the parliament that, took down that martial law. So a coup, a counter coup. What the hell is going on there, Larry?
Well,
and
so
why?
the president he's been under some political fire. There's allegations of corruption on the part of his wife. He's been losing popularity. So he's declared martial law. And some in the military appear to support him. The Speaker of the South Korean Parliament has just declared the martial law in the country invalid after the Parliament voted to lift it. So you've got a standoff between the executive and the legislative. And we're going to see, this is going to actually hinge on how many people show up to support the president and how many show up to support the parliament. And, look, North Korea is watching this, I think, with some mixture of amusement and concern. And maybe they'll try to take advantage of the situation. Who knows? So it's just one more hot spot. I don't think the West had anything to do with creating this. But this constitutes what is one of those wild cards that came out of nowhere, and suddenly creates a new global threat.
Yes, I am. Someone, Patricia, asked here if the reason for this could have been because the Congress has forbidden the sale of weapons to Ukraine.
No. That had nothing to do. This was more with dealing with the president's. What's his name? Suk Yeol. Suk Yeol is he's been under a lot of political fire, and the issue of shipping weapons to Ukraine, may have been a factor at some point, at least in his overall popularity standing. But this particular incident had more to do with just him taking the initiative to declare martial law
on the country. Yeah. So every time that democracy comes to handy, they just go more dictator. That's the big takeoff from today. I would think they just go full blown dictatorship.
Yeah, well, United States used to enjoy the mythology that we were the great democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a federal republic, which is quite different. It's not a majority rule. It's actually a form of government that gives the minority some special protection. But nonetheless, we were always acting as the moral superior of other countries and lecturing them on what they needed to do or did or shouldn't do. And but now we find ourselves engaging in some of the same tactics, techniques, and practices.
Yeah, about just to finish this, Larry, about Ukraine, I don't see anything happening anymore, and we are still waiting for another show up from Russia on the Oreshnik. Oh, by the way, did you see the message that I sent you? The print from my cell phone that I sent you? So just to explain, I woke up this morning with there is this alarm system in Italy. Every mobile phone just rings like a nuclear threat. Wah, 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 wah. And I have 3 mobile phones at home. So the 3 of them just start screaming at my head, and it was like a test of.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's an emergency warning system.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have no news from Oreshnik or a new demonstration from Russia so far. Do you see anything going on there except as usual?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about something new Oreshnik being launched. I mean, Russia's implied that they would do that, but it was going to be done at the time and place of their choosing. But they continue to advance all across the front. They continue to fire missiles, other missiles, rockets, and drones at targets throughout Ukraine, and Ukraine can't stop them. So it's not like Russia's doing nothing. Russia is, actively engaged in attacking Ukrainian targets every day, and Ukraine's losing at a terrible rate. And their soldiers, the media, Western media has been increasingly paying attention to stories about soldiers deserting. Thousands of soldiers deserting.
Yeah, to finish now. Last week we finished the day with the famous sentence, "Show me the money," about Israel and Lebanon truce or ceasefire. And yeah, like 5 hours later, they engaged in a ceasefire. Actually, I was surprised. And 5 hours later, both of them started to claim that the other one was not fulfilling the ceasefire agreement. And just today, I was reading some news that Israel right now will not differentiate Hezbollah from Lebanon. It's going to be the same thing. And looks like the ceasefire is.
They're violating. Israel's violated the ceasefire. Nabi Berri, sort of the Syrian Christian leader that was instrumental in brokering the ceasefire, has complained that Israel's violating it. And Hezbollah has started firing rockets back into Israel. So, this thing's not going to hold. It's just a temporary respite. Part of it needed because Israel itself was exhausted, not really able to sustain the fight.
So Israel needed a timeout. That's the.
Yeah, they did. They intended to. They were well into the 3rd month now of invading southern Lebanon without being able to advance to the Litani River and take control of it. It's a repeat of what happened in 2006. Several of us predicted that.
Yeah. So yeah, let's wait to see. Just like to finish today with the sentence, a quote from Henry Kissinger. Since we talked a lot about democracy, that democracy is too valuable to be left to the people to decide, right?
Yeah. Typical, quintessential Kissinger. Of course, he's dead.
Not sure if I should thank God or perhaps he could be useful at this time.
Well, either if there is an afterlife and if there is a hell, I suspect he's there toiling away, stoking the furnace.
Yeah, that's it. LarryCJohnson.
He has a lot of blood on his hands.
Definitely. He's not the only one. There are still some of them alive.
Unfortunately.
LarryCJohnson, my good friend, thank you very much. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving last week. I forgot to wish you before we finished, so I wish you a hopeful, good Thanksgiving today. Now.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you for the good wishes. And I presume your baby daughter is doing well.
She's growing big and strong.
Yeah.
She's doing better than the rest of the world.
Yeah. Kids do that. Proper care, they grow up nicely.
I already missed last month when she was, this big. All right, Larry. So remember, everybody, that all the links for Larry's are in the description. Remember to follow him on Sonar21, the best intelligence blog on the web. Okay, not averagely good. No, the best.
Yeah, you're generous with your praise.
Well, you're generous with me, and I don't deserve it. You deserve it. And just remember that. So now you're doing more countercurrents, right?
I try to do one a week.
All right.
I'll be interviewing Eve Smith this week.
Awesome.
Naked Capitalism. Yeah.
Is it going to be live?
No. Do it, and then we edit it. Yeah, just clean it up a little bit. That's all.
Okay. But don't miss it. Eve Smith, who has been saying, I've been quoting her a lot when mentioning that what she says about, the West wastes a lot of time talking with themselves, and then comes with, some crappy deal to Russia or whoever, and then they don't understand why people deny it.
Yeah.
It's just delusional.
Yeah, no,
My regards
she's
to
a smart lady.
She's great. Remember to follow also the Naked Capitalism. And all the links, and also where you can find this week you had a nice conversation with Ania, with Nima, the judge, every week. All the links on the description, everybody. Don't forget to follow him there. So Larry, thank you very much, my friend. See you next week.
Thank you. All right, Marcelo, thank you. Ciao.
Bye-bye.